All right, welcome back. Trump believes that tariffs are a national security issue, and the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent agrees with him. Bessent cited several sections of the 1962 Trade Act that give the president sweeping powers over import duties. And either way, he said, we can recreate the exact tariff structure with sections 301, with 232, with 122, he said during an onstage interview at the New York Times Deal Book Summit. Well, he also doesn't expect a ruling in this until January. Now, my next guest may have a different timeline for this ruling, and we'd like to hear his take. We also have a bridge loan that was announced by the USDA, and there are some important filing deadlines that he'd like to make us aware of. So, without further ado, let's bring him on to the show, Mr. Roger McEowen. Roger, thanks for coming on. I actually watched an interview with Scott Bessent this morning where he reiterated he doesn't think that we're going to get an announcement of a new Fed chair until January, and then he threw in the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs till January. What do you think about that?
Well, he might be right. I tend to think that it's not going to go past January. We may get it by the end of December, but we may not. So I think it's probably about a 50-50 shot that we get it by the end of this year. I think it will be sooner rather than later. They're not going to push this off to the end of the term. That's not going to happen at all. But keep in mind, Scott, the basic question, and I think the president is right. I think Secretary and IRS Commissioner Bessent is correct that there are other tools that are not subject to whatever the Supreme Court would say in this case. This only involves IEEPA tariffs. It doesn't involve the other types of tariffs. But the basic question before the court is whether the president's tariffs under the IEEPA, both the fentanyl tariffs on China and Canada, and the tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs on everybody, is that a legal use of the law, or are they an illegal overreach? That's the core question. Now, to me, that's the question. But the issue is, if the tariffs are taxes, then they have to originate in Congress. Everybody agrees with that. If they're foreign policy tools, then foreign relations are controlled by the president. Now, with the IEEPA, did the Congress delegate that authority, that tariff authority, to the president? I argue that they did, and I've said this in a previous interview with you. I think they have. Now, opponents say that, well, if they did, that delegation was illegal, and it can only apply in case of an emergency. Well, okay, but then what about the rapid loss of our manufacturing sector, the complete dependence on our enemies? Doesn't that constitute an emergency? Well, if not, then what does, I would say. And fentanyl now has been declared a weapon of mass destruction. So the Supreme Court, I say that to say this, the Supreme Court is supposed to try its best to make decisions based upon the law itself without considering externals. That's simply impossible in this case. They have to consider the externals, and there are a lot of those externals. This is an economic decision that they're not qualified to make. It's way above their pay grade.
And how do you think they're going to rule on it? Are they going to try to do something? Are they going to, I don't know if they're going to try to make them refund all the money, but is there going to be some sort of really unique crafting of some sort of solution here? What do you think?
If the tariffs, if this law, let me phrase it this way, if the lower court case is not reversed, of course, the lower court case ruled against the president. If they don't reverse that, then I think they've got to do a song and dance here, because the externals are so massive. You've got market issues that are going to be impacted by this. And they've got to consider all of that. And so I don't think you get a clean ruling if they don't reverse the lower court. They will have to deal with these externals. Of course, we have increased government revenue to potentially reduce the deficit because of the tariffs. We have a huge rebalancing of world trade, both in converting some purchasing to domestic sources, and at least moving lots of import purchases to other foreign suppliers. That moves away from China, which is our most dangerous enemy. And you have many trade deals that the president has already negotiated. Those differ wildly from country to country, and it opens up foreign markets to our goods and increases our exports in certain areas of the world. It's a total rebalancing. The court's got to consider that. And that's what I'm saying, that they're not equipped to do. So I don't think if they uphold the lower court, they just can't do it straight away. Because what are you going to do? You're going to refund all this money that's been brought in? How do you address these
No,
external
I
factors?
don't think
And
they
they
will.
just can't. Yeah, they just can't do it.
All right, yeah, we got 10 seconds. 10 seconds, real quick. Can you give us some deadlines on this bridge loan that the government, USDA, has extended to the farmers? I know that we've got some dates coming up here, real quick.
Yep, farmers have to get their data in to USDA by 5 p.m. Eastern this Friday on the 19th. Undersecretary of Agriculture has said as of this morning they're going to have the formula out by Monday the 22nd, and then the payments are supposed to be out by the end of February.
All right, great stuff as usual. You've really put it together for us, and a lot of people really appreciate your SCOTUS thoughts on this, because it's going to be, I think it's the last big market mover that we need to get over before we kind of get started in the new year. So we got two jobs today. We have CPI on Thursday. Yeah, I think we have CPI on Thursday, but I still think this will be bigger than both of those, and we need to get some clarity on that as soon as we can. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, Roger McEowen, coming to us from Topeka, Kansas. Thanks for being on the show, Roger. Really appreciate it. All right.